So, welcome to this meditation session. And a valuable perspective on mindfulness meditation is that it is the enactment of freedom. We're expressing in mental action our capacity to be free. So when we decide to be mindful of something as simple as mindful of the breathing, we're making a choice. When the mind wanders off in thought, and you're mindful enough to and choose to be mindful rather than wandering off in thought, when you're mindful enough to choose beginning again with your breathing, that's an expression of freedom to choose. What often happens is that what comes along with that choice and which obscures the freedom is ideas that I didn't do it well enough, I need to do it better, I should try harder, I should strain, push, make more effort. All these, that I'm a lousy meditator, or someone else is doing it better than me, or the real thing is something different. And all these ideas and all these get carried along, and all these shoulds get carried along, and obscures the fact that for one little moment there was an enactment of freedom. The freedom of where our attention can be focused. And so to appreciate that moment, that initial moment, that moment that's independent and free of all the thoughts, agendas, fears that we might have, all the ideas of self that kind of come along with it, obscures the fact that we have just enacted a small little moment of freedom. And if then we choose to investigate, to explore, to look more closely at the experience, there also it's an enactment of freedom. It's a freedom from our preoccupations, from all our judgments and reactivity. So to be mindful is a little freedom from preoccupation, from being pulled into a world where we're trapped or not free of thoughts, ideas, fantasies, judgments. Just simple, be mindful of this. That freedom is enacted a little bit more strongly in the initial moment we decide to look more carefully. And that's often obscured, the freedom, because we think that we have to be successful. It's an exam, and we're going to get tested if we, how well we discover what's there. And there's some magic key that we have to see, and I have to really strain now and look and analyze, and all these other ideas that obscure the simplicity of the moment of looking more carefully, looking, what is this? That's an enactment of freedom. And as we see more clearly, the choices we make become an enactment of freedom. The choice not to strain as we look at our breathing, as we meditate on breathing. The choice to turn our attention from the breath to look at how we're being critical of ourselves. In the criticalness lost in that, there's no freedom. But in the moment of turning around to look at it, a choice to look at it rather than just going along with it, is also an enactment of freedom. To see what is helpful and not helpful, healthy and not healthy, and to choose the healthy is an enactment of freedom. And so to begin appreciating the little hints of freedom in mindfulness, investigation, in effort. And as we appreciate it, that appreciation is a pleasure. That appreciation can give rise to a contentment. Oh, this is the path to freedom. I'm discovering something helpful here. It can give rise to joy. The joy of freely being aware of our experience. And then there can be even affection for the difficult things, because we're aware of them with our freedom. So as these 7 factors of awakening develop, first they develop as little hints, little intuitions of how they're there. But as we do this meditation, perhaps you can sit here now with an intuition, the hints, a recognition of how you enact freedom in choosing to be mindful, investigate, make effort. And the freedom that's found before all the complexities we bring to those things, in their simplicity. So to sit, to assume your meditation posture, and some of you probably didn't recognize that in assuming your posture you were expressing your freedom. There is a choice, free will choice, to now adjust your posture, take a posture. And then to gently close your eyes. And as you're sitting here with the eyes closed, what is the simplest, freest way that you can allow yourself to be aware of your body? A choice, a free will choice, if you want to take it, to become aware of how your body is right now. Before preferences, before likes and dislikes, just aware. And then to take a few long, slow, deep breaths. As you exhale, relax into the posture. Deep breath in, exhale, relax the whole body, as if the posture relaxing is a homecoming to this posture. And then letting your breathing return to normal. And as you exhale, softening the muscles of your forehead and temple. And if they don't soften or relax, maybe the awareness of it can be spacious and open. As you exhale, softening around the eyes, the cheeks, the jaws. As you exhale, maybe there can be a relaxation and an opening in the back of your neck, the vertebrae just below the skull. Can they soften and relax? Softening as you exhale around the collarbones. And then releasing the shoulders. As you exhale, relaxing the chest, the heart center. And then softening the belly. And lower half of your torso. Lower back, the hip area, hip joints. And down your legs. And then gently, calmly, become mindful of your breathing. And can you, as you're mindful of breathing, feel or perceive how the choice to do so, if it's your own, is a small little enactment of freedom. Freedom from the tyranny of thinking. Just mindful for a moment. Receptive to the inhalation, receptive to the movements of the body as you breathe in. And is there some way that that simple receptive awareness can have qualities of freedom, independence? For a few moments, maybe awareness free of being hijacked by thoughts and ideas and judgments. Simple awareness, receptive to breathing. As you exhale, allowing the exhale and allowing awareness. Is there some freedom in awareness that is so simple. It just allows the experience to be there. Even if you are thinking and judging, maybe part of the awareness of breathing can feel like there's freedom there. A silent freedom, spacious, open. And very gently exploring the experience of breathing, feeling it more fully, more clearly, not dramatically so, just a little more. And in that choice to explore and feel it more fully, there's also an enactment of freedom, enactment to be aware rather than being pulled into thinking. And if you find yourself thinking, and you choose to begin again with your breathing, that's an enactment of effort, which might also contain some freedom, freedom of choice, freedom of where your effort is placed. If while you're inhaling you choose to be with the inhale, but then when you exhale, the choice becomes to be with the exhale. It's a simple enactment of liberated effort. And to whatever degree, however small, you can feel that your practice enacts freedom. Even if you keep getting caught in thought and preoccupied in it, even so, is there some little corner of awareness, of effort, where you feel your freedom? and to appreciate that, to feel the pleasure of that. Maybe even the joy of that. Appreciating our freedom is also an enactment of freedom. Feeling the joy of liberated mindfulness. And then it doesn't matter so much what we're mindful of, because we delight in mindfulness itself. We delight in investigation. There's a delight in this effort or choice that has qualities of freedom in it. And there's freedom in enjoying the joy of freedom as we practice mindfulness. No matter what we're mindful of, there can be a delight in that freedom. If you find yourself caught up in thought, or caught up in anything, if you allow yourself to clearly know that that's the case, there is some quality of freedom in that clear knowing. See if you can build on that freedom, expand that freedom by doing it again and again. last 10 minutes of this sitting, perhaps you can feel your way to stay close to where you're free. A freedom which is closely related to simplicity of being. Nothing complicated. Recognizing the simple freedom in choosing to be aware. The simple freedom in seeing what's happening. The freedom to appreciate, to enjoy the simplicity of being that's related to our freedom. And then as we come to the end of this sitting, imagine what what would be like for you to be resting in the simplicity of being, resting in a freedom of being, where you're not caught up in your reactions, your judgments, your criticalness, not caught up in the shoulds and shouldn'ts, sense of obligations, and just resting in simple freedom, where you're allowed to be free, you're allowed to be simple and present. And in this way, imagine that you encounter another person who's also free, a person who has no agendas and has no needs at the moment, is not living in their judgments or preferences, likes and dislikes. This person's also at rest, at ease, in their own simplicity of being, at ease in their freedom. And to sit with this person, you and your freedom and they and their freedom. A freedom where it makes it safe to have goodwill, love, care, friendliness for the other. And perhaps you can open your heart safely, fully, a meeting of hearts, each of you independent and free, without any need from the other, content and to sit with each other, appreciating each other. And how much can you open your heart, your goodwill, your friendliness in this circumstance? And now imagine that you can do that with others who are not so free. People who come with agendas and preferences and needs. Imagine that you can rest in your simplicity of being even then. And without them necessarily knowing, to continue with your goodwill, your friendliness, freely choosing goodwill. And may it be that we learn through this practice to open our goodwill to all beings equally, while being rooted in our capacity for freedom, a freedom that allows us to return to a simplicity of being, so that we might genuinely feel and think, may it be that all beings be happy. May it be that all beings be safe. May it be that all beings be peaceful. May it be that all beings be free. And may I, in my capacity for freedom, help make this possible. at least radiating from me, comes goodwill and safety for others. May all beings be happy. Continuing on this series of the 7 factors of awakening, the factor for today is joy. And joy is the particular joy that's a factor of awakening, is really a product of doing the practice of mindfulness. So it's not a joy that comes from reflection and that wonderful things are happening to us in the world. It's really a joy that arises out of the practice, doing the practice, really engaging in the practice in a kind of sincere, wholehearted way. And I like to think of this joy as being also a expression or enactment or manifestation of our freedom that grows as we do the practice of mindfulness. And that these 7 factors of awakening all can be seen as enactments of freedom. And rather than waiting for freedom to occur in a big bang of enlightenment down the road, if we just huff and puff and get concentrated enough and still enough, and then eventually, maybe by magic, there'll be a big aha moment or a big transformation moment. Boom. And now you'll live happily free for the rest of your life. You have it made. Enlightened retirement. It's much more, I think, valuable to appreciate that we're beginning to move, we're taking a seed, a little of freedom, the potential for freedom inside of us, and germinating it, caring for it carefully in the greenhouse, tending to it carefully, transplanting it out into the world, and letting it grow and develop and mature into something, into freedom, full freedom. Because then we're beginning to take a little bit more responsibility for this freedom thing ourselves, rather than thinking that, something else is going to do it for me. And so these beginning to recognize little movements of freedom that we all use all day long. In fact, I would venture to guess that most of us have more moments of freedom through the day than non-freedom. But the reason we don't feel like we're free is that we prioritize our attention, we let our attention prioritize or focus on the ways that we're unhappy, or the ways of what we want, what we don't want. We get swept up into the world of thinking, where in the thinking there's not much freedom, more often than not for people. We're kind of hijacked by our thoughts, our concerns, our fears, our desires. And so it might seem that in the important ways, in psychological ways, that we're not free. But there are plenty of ways that we are free. If you sit down in a chair, you have a fair amount of freedom about how you adjust yourself into that chair. And you probably never really gave much thought to how you sat in the chair and how you adjust yourself to be comfortable. But that movement of sitting down and choosing how you sit in the chair is an expression, is a manifestation of some freedom. reaching forward to open your front door is an expression of freedom, that you can do that. There are people who can't do that for all kinds of reasons. There's lots of little moments of where you choose to do something and there's a freedom in doing it. As we start doing mindfulness practice, to begin recognizing how mindfulness itself can be an enactment of freedom. And that's hard to do if mindfulness is burdened by shoulds and shouldn'ts and got to do better and supposed to get somewhere and am I there yet and I'm not a good meditator and someone else is a better meditator, or I'm supposed to bear down and really strain, and what's important, they say, is continuity of mindfulness. So I'm really going to, when I'm mindful, I'm not just going to be mindful, I'm going to, really push and make strong effort, and really strain. So all this extra stuff comes along with mindfulness. A moment of mindfulness is something that's phenomenally simple. And if just to know in the moment what's happening. And in fact, you have many of these moments throughout the day where you know something without the burden of anything more complicated than knowing that's doing there. Chances that when you open that door, half the time at least when you open the door, you just know, something inside of you know it's a door, know it's a door handle, and it's not anything more complicated than that. You're not comparing your door handle to your neighbor's door handle and who has the better door handle and I should have a better door handle. It's just a door handle. But the practice of mindfulness is also the practice of appreciating that simplicity of awareness in the moment. And seeing can feel an enactment of freedom. There's freedom in that knowing before all the extra stuff is added on top of it. And then the freedom to choose to investigate. As soon as you choose to investigate, to look more carefully, to recognize more carefully what's here, you're not being swept off in your thoughts. You're not being swept off in your agendas, desires, wishes. It's a little movement. I'm choosing not to be the old way. I'm choosing to take a better look, to give a second look to what's happening. And that's an enactment of freedom. Effort having to do with choices, choosing the endeavor which is more healthy for us. As soon as we make a choice towards health, towards skillfulness, to wholesomeness, we're enacting our freedom. As I keep saying, we don't recognize it so much because many of us carry with us this huge, huge, huge backpack everywhere we go of shoulds and desires and agendas and self-concepts and self-criticism and aversion and all this stuff that we carry along. And so we don't, because of that heavy backpack, we don't recognize the ease and simplicity and freedom in these choices to move in the healthy direction. So part of this practice is begin recognizing something that's probably there to some degree all along. The enactment of freedom, the expression of it. And that brings us to joy. The word joy is piti, P-I-T-I, and it means, usually translated as joy, sometimes as ecstasy, sometimes as rapture. But that's a particular Theravada slant on this, or a meditation slant on this word piti. It could also mean pleasure, it can mean delight, enjoyment. In Sanskrit, the priti, the Sanskrit word, can also mean friendliness and pleasure and affection, which I think begins showing that it's an emotional quality. Sometimes pure, we're tapping into an emotional connection to the practice and to being free and what's being present that comes from a kind of an emotional contentment. Contentment, I'm doing a practice, I'm practicing a path of freedom. this is worthwhile. This is a healthy thing to be doing. And we're enacting the freedom which feels so good, to feel like we're not entangled, trapped, caught in things, because the awareness, the mind has become free in the enactment of these freedoms. And so the continuity of this free act of mindfulness, the continuity of mindfulness, of concentration, tends to give birth to a variety of different kinds of contentment, joys, happinesses. And there's all kinds of different types. But some of it is simply, it's like if you slide down a long, long slide, there's a joy of that freedom of just letting go and going. And it's just a delight. So the same way, if you can have the continuity of these moments of freedom, continuity of choosing and engaging and being mindful and aware, there's a feeling that, we'll start getting a more taste for that freedom. And it feels like not necessarily a slide, but the same kind of, the continuity gives birth to a joy and delight. And boy, am I lucky. This is a great thing. It's not so much we evaluate that. It's like we think our way into that. But there's a delight, a joy, a gladness, just in the freshness, in the, it used to be in the United States, there was a reference point to the joy of driving on an empty, open freeway, open highway. I don't think we've forgotten what that is like. But this, this joy, this open, free highway of meditation, of practice. And the amazing thing about this is that then it doesn't matter as much whether what's happening to us is pleasant and unpleasant, because we discover how to be free and to be mindful, aware, investigate, make healthy choices. This inner freedom is discovered even when things are unpleasant, even when things in the world around us are not so good. And what an amazing thing to have discovered that because we know how to be mindful, and because we know how to investigate and make choices and appreciate that we're doing this, there can even be joy and delight when conventionally, when the world expects us, or even our people want us to be miserable. You're supposed to be miserable. When I'm miserable, so you're supposed to be miserable. We're supposed to commiserate in our commune in our miserableness. Isn't it terrible? Things are awful. So what happens as we start moving through these factors of awakening, and when I say what I'm about to say, you might decide to get off the factors of awakening path. Because what happens is when you get far enough along it, you won't be inclined to complain anymore. Because you have something much better to do. Much more wonderful to do. The enactment of your freedom through mindfulness, investigation, effort, endeavoring, and this wonderful joy of freedom. May you find that complaint-free zone of freedom and delight in it. Thank you.